All right, welcome back to another episode of Navigating Consciousness. I'm Daniel Gilfix. I'm here every week. So thank you for all laughing. I have an audience today. I've got, usually it's just me and John, but today we have two people in the studio with us, which is awesome. And we're going to be getting into their human design body graphs and doing a bit of work for them, potentially. Just wanted to touch on just the sort of background energy and what's happening. Last couple of weeks has been really interesting because things felt almost kind of normal, and then, but there was the sort of undertone of something, that was also there that could be felt, and I feel like it's coming up. So probably. There's going to be some kind of escalation of the background of the sort of continued, dissolving and breaking down of the structures that we've all become very familiar with. Maybe it'll be, economic. Maybe it'll be more like earth-based. Again, showing us that the climate is shifting. Things that we used to be able to take for granted, we won't be able to anymore. And as I've said, pretty much every time I'm here, this is all very normal, and it's all what should actually be happening because we're moving into, in 2027, a new cycle, a new set of background energies coming forward that is going to change things quite a bit, and we're all involved in that change right now. So last week I was talking about the incarnation cross of planning that we're currently in, or the cross of planning, because we're talking about a galactic cycle. And the cross planning we've been in since 1615, and that is the cross that is coming to an end in 2027. And the cross of planning again is about family, it's about tribe, it's about institutions being formed to support this tribe, and to the sort of pressure of this cross being about paying attention to detail, and and just really focusing and being able to do the same thing over and over and over again. Being very consistent, and and also these institutions coming forward to allow humans to move around, to mix our DNA, and eventually to give birth to a different form, a different kind of human. So that cross is coming to an end, 2027. I'm going to talk about the cross of the sleeping phoenix that we're moving into in 2027. So, John, can you put that first image up, the cross of the sleeping phoenix?
Yep.
Okay. Well, okay, so just, yeah, sure, man. Okay, so when the image comes up, you'll be able to see. But if you were watching last week, it's the same image. It's the locks and keys. So there's the 25th gate, which is the way in every one of these crosses. The 25th gate is about the universalization of love. So if you have the 25th gate defined in your body graph, you're probably someone who talks to their car, and that kind of stuff. Thank you so much. So with the 25th gate, you can universally love. It's like you can love a human, you can love an animal, you can love an object. It's all going to be kind of the same in a certain way. The 25th gate is direction, right? It's kind of the focus in a certain way. It's the thing that we're sort of most conscious of. In the cross of planning, that was the 37th gate. That's the gate of the family, and the gate of resources, in a certain way. In the sleeping phoenix, we're moving to the 55th gate, which is about abundance. So we're actually going to be moving into a very abundant period. I don't know exactly how it's not going to be about money necessarily. It's not like everyone's going to be rich, because the 55th gate is an abundance of the spirit. this can go kind of one or two ways. There's lots of stories of people who, they spent their early life making a lot of money, making a name for themselves, and then finding themselves feeling quite empty and needing to fill that space with a spiritual pursuit. Jim Carrey, right? And, dude was making $20 million per movie when that was like really sort of unheard of, and kind of walked away from it all and grew his beard and started to meditate and to sort of pursue his own inner truth. And that's really kind of the abundance that I'm talking about. It's an abundance of spirit. We're going to have access to things that we haven't had access to really before. And then when we go to the witness, which is the 13th gate, we have the 54th gate unlocking, being the key to that lock. The 54th gate is about the mundane. It's a very physical gate, but it's also a gate of enlightenment. So with it was the 61 in the cross of planning. So the witness for the cross of planning was about occult knowledge, occult wisdom, and that's what we've all been sort of exposed to. With the 54th gate coming in and inhabiting that same space, we'll have the opportunity to apply that in a very mundane kind of way, meaning that we'll be able to, take the spirit, like we won't have questions, potentially. This is what I see anyway. People have different interpretations, but we won't have the questions, right? We won't have a need for spiritual truths to be revealed because they would have been revealed. We won't have those questions because they've already been answered. The questions that we'll have and what will be revealed in the coming 412-year period is going to be much more about what do we do with this? Like, how do we apply it to our reality to make life good for ourselves, right, as individuals? Because the Sleeping Phoenix is a very individual cross, whereas the cross of planning was about the the tribe. The collective's a different energy. So yeah, it won't be about, it won't be a, ask not what your country can do for you kind of situation. It will be very much like, what do I need? We probably won't even really identify with nations in the same way. We're already not doing that. So yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. The more that I look at this galactic cycle and the locks and the keys and how they're shifting, but that's my area of interest. I very much like pursuing spiritual truths and bringing them into a mundane expression. So something to look forward to, I think. All right. So, Talene, I'm going to start with you if that's okay. So you've already looked at your body graph somewhat, right? Like some of the basics. You could pull that mic up if you like.
Somewhat, yes.
Okay. So the first thing that I'll touch on is about being a manifester. We were kind of talking about that before we all got started, and I'm curious if you're at all conscious of like what it feels like to be a manifester. Like, do you know kind of the difference between you and someone like myself who's a generator, or like anyone else? Sorry,
Yeah, to a certain degree. So what I do know is that I guess we're initiators of
Right.
change to a certain degree. So when I discovered that I was a manifester, it made so much sense when I look in hindsight in my life of how I trigger environments, people, entering a space and influencing the energy of the room, that kind of stuff I've been mindful of, but I didn't really quite understand it until I found out that I was a manifester.
Yeah. When did you get exposed to that?
2 years ago.
Okay, cool.
So very fresh, but then also understanding, I guess to a certain degree, how my thoughts really can turn into things. I mean, all of ours do, but as a manifester, I've had moments where I've thought things and instantaneously manifested them, or it could take months. It just really depends. So I've kind of been watching those cycles of point of creation in my mind to when it actually begins to manifest into my life. And recognizing certain things, but I'm still learning along the way.
Yeah, of course. So the manifestor aura, right, like the thing that sort of defines you is how people are going to feel in your presence. And it's a push away aura, right? So, and that's very important. And you actually there's a few things that you have going on. So you not only have that manifestor aura, you also have your design sun in the 39th gate and your design earth in the 38. These are known as like deafness channels. So it's basically the 38, the 39, and the 23. I'm not sure if it's the 43 or the 23, but they're part of the same channel. These are like deafness gates. It's basically like you're so individual and so kind of unique in your expression. Like you're not here to be affected. Outside of being a manifestor, where you're not here to be affected, you're here to affect, right? You're here to have the impact. You're not here to be impacted by others. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, talking about incarnation crosses. I'll just pull up your body graph here. Because yours, just one moment. All right, I have to go to a different site. That one's not working. Okay. Do you know much about this incarnation cross?
No, I don't. And I was going to ask, I guess, when you talk about these gates, what are they and how do they play a role?
Sure. So let's get like right into the basics. Yeah. So human design is an amalgamation of the I Ching. Are you familiar with this book? So the I Ching is a book of Chinese divination, and it was written a very long time ago. It could possibly be one of the oldest books ever found, and it's comprised of 64 hexagrams, 64 six-line patterns of broken and solid lines, and you throw these coins, and then so you throw like 3 coins. You get a combination of heads or tails, and you do that 6 times, and that gives you each line, and then with the 6 lines, you get a specific, interpretation, right? These are, you're asking questions, and the interesting thing about that as well is that there's 64 hexagrams in the I Ching, and there's 64 codons that like code our DNA. So it's an interesting coincidence, say. So Ra, who received this knowledge, he had an experience with a voice that was for 8 days and 8 nights, and he kind of was given all this knowledge, and he's spent the rest of his life like sorting it out. So the system kind of grew as he came to understand more and more of what he was given, and then he died in 2011. So things kind of stopped there, but so the body graph is taken from the Kabbalist tree of life. The gates are from the hexagram, and the gates are activated by your planetary aspects. So at the time of your birth, you have two columns. You have your personality and your design. Your personality column is the gates activated by the planets at the time of your birth. And the design column is the planetary positions 3 months before you were born.
Okay.
So your design is your body, it's your form, and Ra said that our form is our vehicle, right? And our personality is our passenger, or is the passenger, right? So the personality is not meant to drive, but our mind, which is our personality, right? It's like our more mental aspects. Our mind likes to, or has been told that it needs to take control, and we need to figure it out. And We need to make decisions with like logic and rationality. But as an emotional being, such as yourself or myself, that's like the worst thing that we can do, because if we make a decision before we're emotionally ready, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And we've been conditioned through our whole lives to disregard what we're feeling and go to the mind, just as everyone else has. It's just for you and me, it's different because we do have this sort of emotional intensity, right? So, so with those planetary aspects, you have activated gates. If you have gates on either end of a channel, you have an activated channel. And it's really, and then each gate can be divided into each gate is divided into 6 lines, and then each line's divided into 6 colors and 6 tones and 5 bases. So there's like 1,080 combinations that you can have for each gate, something like that. Maybe 1,080 total. I don't remember exactly, but anyway, it's a lot. Like it's a lot. There's a lot to kind of get into there. The incarnation cross is made with your personality Sun Earth and your design Sun Earth, and it's called the cross of tension. So, the 3839 is provocative. So not the easiest, not the easiest, because but it's a provoking of truth.
So when you talk about that energy, it's my presence provokes others into their truth, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, so it has to be taken into account with your aura. So you're already going to have, just as you are, you're going to have an impact. And you should lean into that. The thing with manifestors is that they tend to be conditioned away from that, right? And there's something that starts very early on, which is that because your aura is a push away aura, your parents would have picked that up.
Yes.
So, and they wouldn't have really known what to do with that, because even if they themselves were manifestors, they've been conditioned to think like this is how it should be, and my child should be willing to accept my energy, and you don't, and you never did. And so they were just like, well, something's wrong here, but they just didn't know that you were a manifestor. So you spent your whole life being told that what you are is not okay, right? And
Very
I know
true.
a number of I have so many manifestor friends and clients. It's kind of weird, considering that you're pretty rare, that there's only like 9% of the population. But yeah, they all really don't know what to do with like themselves, so because they're living relatively normal lives. You can have, Tom Cruise is a manifestor, Jack Nicholson's a manifestor, Kim Basinger, she's, so it's like you can be a star, you could take that, Jennifer Aniston, these are all manifestors, right? All had very long careers, maybe not the best actors, but Jack Nicholson's obviously a very good actor, but but yeah, it's like they've all had, everyone knows them, and all they had to do was sort of be seen and sort of accepted, and Nicholson especially, I guess Tom Cruise also though, because these are like male manifestors, like what I was saying, there's real differences there. They're sort of untouchable. It's like no one can really understand these people. They're like mysterious. And that's part of being a manifestor too, is like that mystery, like who is this person? And you won't show that, or you shouldn't, and so you kind of you have to work to be open, and you have to work to be like receptive, because that's what you've been conditioned to be in this life as a manifestor. But really it's like, yeah, you should embrace that mystery and embrace being difficult. Jack and Tom, like these are difficult people, right? Everyone has stories about them. These are difficult people, but they're loved because they do something really well. They do something that other people just cannot do. There is no other. And because you're only 9% of the population, there literally is no other. It's like you're you, and there's not going to be anyone close to it.
Yeah.
As soon as you be that. But But yeah, you can you can expect to upset people when you're being yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say how I'm received has been, I've had a different outlook on that. And I guess for the longest time since I was a kid, the concept of rejection or whatever triggers witness in other people, to not take it personally because it's just kind of what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also so talking about lines in gates. So when you take the lines of your personality, Sun Earth, and the lines of your design, Sun Earth, you get your profile. So your Sun Earth are always in opposition, so they're always going to have the same line activated at the same time. And so you have a third line personality and a fifth line design. So you're a 3-5 profile. The 5 is always being projected on. So people will assume things about you,
All the time.
all the time. But there's also like a seductive quality. So if you have a 5 in your personality, you have a seductive mind. If you have a 5 in your design, it's a seductive body. It doesn't mean that it's like about being seductive like sexually. It's that thing where people just notice you and they kind of want to know what's going on there, but then they also project all their wants and needs, like, oh, this person might fulfill me, this person's mind has the answers, this person's body is going to feel good if I'm close to it, like whichever way that wants to go. You also have the channel of talent, so it's kind of like an interesting mix because people are going to assume that you are talented, but they're going to assume that you're talented in very specific ways. And you are talented. You have natural capabilities. You have depth. You have skills and depth. For those skills to come through. So it's a cool channel. It's one that I really like. I don't have that one at all. It's completely open for me. So I get to be in other people's fields and feel their talents and skills and like the sort of depth that they contain there. So yeah, there's a lot for you to like, there's an impact that you can have and you can do it through your skill, like through your skill set. What do you do?
I'm a healer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot of healing work and energy work, mostly through sound, but
Okay.
various different forms, art, music, poetry, writing, just counseling one-on-one with people. But like you said, it's constantly a challenge or hurdle for me when, it doesn't matter if it's a group of people or one-on-one, whatever talents and gifts that I have, which are actually many,
Yeah.
and many ways that I express them, people tend to want to put them in a box or confine them in a specific way where I enjoy being more boundless and free-flowing in that expression of whatever the moment calls for.
Yeah.
But met with resistance from others because they just want to confine it in a certain box.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's part of that provocation, right? So people are going to expect like this is where you end, and they're gonna be like, no, I go way beyond this, and then it's going to be like, well, what do you mean? Like I had this image of you, and now you're like denying that, and that's that like provocation. It's also about provoking, like questioning people. Like if someone comes to you and they have some kind of claim, like, yeah, it's like, I don't know if I believe you. Can you, and that may be, even if you do, just playing that role, like you don't know what kind of truths you can provoke through just engaging with people in that way. Prove it, show me, that kind of stuff. Yeah, being confrontational is like difficult. Or it can, because again, we're not, conditioned. Like it's awkward and weird because we don't know how to do it right, and we're not good at it because we don't do it enough. But there's a way for it to become quite habitual for you and like easy to access. You also have the channel of transitoriness, so you like to do a lot of different things. So being one thing is not really going to work for you, and nor should it. It's a jack of all trades energy. So just being, and you have the channel of talent. So it's kind of like whatever you're into, you'll get good at, potentially.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Yeah.
I lean into trust. Whatever I put my mind into, I can always master it.
All right. I'll just very quickly touch on the variables. So the variables are these arrows that point left or right. You are, and where you're left, you're more like strategic and focused, and where you're right, you're more open and receptive. And again, this is about the relationship of the Sun Earth as well as the design and personality North Node and South Node. So from our, it's called a PRRDLL. It means on the personality side, both arrows are going right. So you have a very open mind and it's very receptive. Your brain, on the other hand, which is on the design side, is more focused and strategic. So your mind is actually going to be like your mind. Well, and then the other right variable is about perspective. So it's about how you see. So your mind's very open and very receptive, and you see in a big picture kind of way. And there's also like a relaxed quality to that, or there should be, just like taking your time and like not being in a rush.
Yes. I hate it when people put that pressure of rushing.
Yeah, for sure. There's other things, the open head, open root. It's like you don't like pressure. It's always, you don't know what to do with it, you know. Other people have defined roots, defined heads. They're better at pressure. That doesn't mean that it's better to have a defined head center or root center. It just means if you don't have it, then you're very susceptible to feeling pressured by other people. And that if you feel that pressure, that's probably a good sign that you're not with the right people or you're not in the right place. Location for you is going to be very important because you have an open G center. So having an open G center basically just, the G is about direction and, about identity, right? So like there are people who live in the world and they know what they like and they know who they are and they wake up every morning and they're like, this is who I am and this is what I do and this is how I do it. And totally fine, For you, that's not how you operate. You're literally a different person when you're in different places and around different people,
That's
right?
so true.
Yeah, for sure. I have an open G also, so again, like I get it. So when you have an open G, it's really about location, because if you're in the wrong place, then you can't be around the right people. So really, so when you're looking at like location, we look at environment. So like, what is your body like? So we see the left variable on the design North Node, South Node side. That's environment. Your environment is called caves. So you like to be in a secure place, preferably with one door. So when you go to a restaurant, you like to sit with your back to a wall and you facing the
How
door.
did you know?
Well, it's the same with everyone who has a cave environment. Yeah. So just knowing who's coming and going and having some awareness, some control even of that. And, caves are very social places. When you think about, when humans lived in caves, now it's a solitary thing, right? It's like the yogi up in a cave, and you have to climb 10,000 feet to gain his wisdom. That's a different kind of environment. That's a mountain environment. A cave is like full of people, doing different things, people over here preparing food, people over here making clothes, people over here making weapons, people over here making art, people over here like sleeping, whatever. But it's very social, right? There's a lot of people in these caves usually. So it's not about being alone or being isolated. It's quite the opposite, but it is to say that you will feel best when it's your space and you know who's coming and going and you can see the exit, basically. Now, with the left variable, that's active. So in your environment, you like to be active. So if you're in a place where you're just like, oh, I'm so tired, I couldn't do anything even if I wanted to, you're in the wrong place, like 100%. Like you want to be in a place where you can feel that energy of doing, even if it's not about doing. Like even if you're not in the right place to do something, you should feel like you could. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. And then on the above that, on the design Sun Earth, you have your your like dietary strategy. It's about cognition. It's like how your brain likes to be fed, and you're actually it's an interesting one. It's about light. So it's about eating when the sun is up or the sun is down, but not both at the same time. You're a direct light. So for you, it's best to stop eating when the sun goes down, and not. It's really about like not going to bed with a full stomach, you know, and just so people with and this is just an experiment. It's like try it out, see how you feel, do it when you want to, you know, do it when it feels right, when you're in the mood, because having emotional authority means that you're really only supposed to do stuff when you're in the mood for it.
Yeah.
So if you're in the mood to eat and it's 9 p.m., by all means, you know, do that. But I think you'll find that the more you don't, the less you'll want to, because there will be a sort of like awareness that your brain is actually being fed much better this way. And taste, like your taste. So trying things, you know, that Jack of all trades channel, like trying different things, you know, really mixing it up like every day, you know, just trying. And then, but also like knowing what you like, your taste in things, and just kind of being consistent with that when it's correct. Does that all kind of work for you so far?
It's very spot on.
Yeah. Right on.
Well, you were talking about certain things being like in the left direction.
Yeah, variables.
Variables.
Yeah.
What does that conflict with the parts that like to be open?
I mean, it can. It's really about you know, because we're in this period of transition. So we're not only coming to the end of an age. We're also it's the first. So our design as 9-centered beings, because that's the thing with this system, is it sees us as a 9-centered form rather than a 7-centered form. And the what Ra was told by this voice is that in 1781 there was a mutation to the human form with the discovery of Uranus, and 9-centered beings started to come in. 7-centered beings, they were designed for dominance and hierarchy and control, and they did all that very well. And they were also their mutation was in the ajna, in the third eye center. So they were the first, like before the 7-centered humans were 5-centered, which is kind of like animals. So they weren't self-aware in the same way that we are self-aware. So, you know, they were plenty smart, like very intelligent, but also very like kind of magical, like really just plugged into the earth. And then the 7-centered beings came in with the sort of awareness of themselves as being separate, which is what like the Garden of Eden story is. It's like, oh, now I know myself.
Yeah.
I know I am a self, and I'm, you know, and I'm naked, I'm vulnerable, and I suffer and I struggle, and like I, right? All that stuff. The suffering and the struggle of an animal is different. Not to say that they don't suffer or struggle, but they're not aware of themselves as struggling and suffering to the same degree that we do. And as a result, we're much better at inflicting suffering and struggling onto others, because we know what that feels like for our own selves, right? So, and that's what made them so good at being dominant. Like they knew exactly how to get in. You know, this is how we trap this animal. This is how we clear this land. This is how we like make the earth what we need it to be, because we know what we are and we know what works for us, and we're just gonna, you know, again, sort of project that out there. You know. So the 9-centered beings came in 1781 and replaced the 7 centers, but we're sort of a transitory, we're not here for a super long time. 7-centered beings were on the planet for, you know, 70,000 years. We're here for like a couple hundred, you know. So we've been here since 1781. Projectors were also a new form that came in at that time, so their aura is like the youngest. They're like children in a certain way. And projectors, no, I'm not, you know, like it's not a like offensive statement because we have a projector in the audience today. But yeah, there's just like, there's an innocence to them. And I mean, you know, again, it's the same thing. It's like that could be conditioned out of them just as much, but it's much better when they are. like children, like just exploring and discovering, and children are very wise when you let them be, right? Yeah, and the whole thing is there's a new form coming in 2027, and they're going to replace us just as we replace the seven-centered beings, but it's going to take a long time, 1,800 years or so I've been told. So the variables, all the seven-centered beings were left, and all the new form, which Ra called rave, all the rave are going to be all right variables. So the rave are open and receptive. The seven-centered beings were strategic and focused, and that was all they could be. And we're a combination of these things. So your form is very focused, very much like the seven-centered beings. So your body likes being active, likes to be seen, likes to compete even, but your personality is the right, so it's like the future. It's like the human that's to come, even though the rave aren't going to be technically human, but it's like, it's just, we're in that mix. We're neither. We're really like our own thing. So, and it's all kind of an experiment. It's like, okay, like this combination of variables with, an emotional manifester on the cross of tension, like go, because that's a very specific kind of combination of like chemistry, if that all makes sense,
So riding that emotional wave, but then trusting that the tension is with intention, like if that makes sense.
Yeah, that when things are, as an emotional being, you're here to go deep. And with the cross of tension, in the alignment that you have it, you're here to go deep. So you're here to push people into deep water.
Nice.
Push things, yeah. But that's it. It's like but there's that's the.
That should be my disclaimer on my website.
Well, that's what this whole period of time, right? It's about like adaptation. There's evolutionary pressure on all of us right now. We're all mutating, and it is a sink or swim. Not everyone's coming with, and that, again, like it's fine. Some people, the Earth is moving through its process. Its frequency is getting elevated. It's up to us to be in harmony with that as it shifts.
Yep.
And if you can't, then you can't be here, and that's why all these institutions are failing. Why no one trusts the government or the medical system or the education system, because they belong to a previous era.
Yeah.
And their energy's not coming with us, right? So, yeah, so that's your role, right? That's the impact that you can have in this life, is to provoke people. Like, do you want to stay? Do you want to be a part of this thing? Then this is what you do. This is the work that we have to do together. And if they don't want to, okay, like plenty of others, who will come once you make yourself like available by, being kind of like disagreeable and just being like, okay, you're not doing this, I'm not interested, go away, whatever, like in your own words.
Yeah, that tends to happen. It's like, if you're not riding along the wave with me, then there's a part where people exit. Can you touch on the difference between being a male and female manifester?
Yeah. This is a conversation I've had with a number of my clients, because again, I seem to, manifestors, men in general don't kind of come for this work often. And, whether it be like astrology or human design or the energy work that I do or that you do, I mean, it's, it's a feminine space. Manifestors especially don't want to open. They don't want to be like penetrated in that way, right? They're not really here for that. So so most of the manifestors that I've worked on have been women, and this is something that we always talk about when I'm working on them, because they're like, well, this all sounds like amazing, but like I want to love somebody. I'm a mother. I have children. Like, how am I supposed to operate in this way while also kind of like caring for these people and being a part of their life? And I'd say that's the main difference. Male manifestors don't ask those questions. by and large. They're not self-absorbed, they just know. They're just like, this is what I got. And I'm not interested in being different. And that's why they don't really come for this work so much. Like Ra, who got all this knowledge, I mean, he was a manifester and he had to be basically kidnapped, right, by this thing. You know, this voice took him over. If it hadn't done that to him, he probably wouldn't. If he had been given a choice, he would have absolutely said no, like 100%. You know, so yeah, I'd say female manifestors tend to be more open and more receptive than their male counterparts, and less willing to just kind of be like what they are and like let it be whatever it is. It seems to be a bit more difficult. But again, that's kind of part of the conditioning too, you know, just women, you know, most of the world are like, manifestors are conditioned to be generators. You know, a generator aura is like warm and open and just like, yeah, come on in, you know. But, and women especially, I feel, are very conditioned to be that way, like not to be strong and self-assured and know themselves and, you know, all that stuff. Would you like to work a little bit on that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, we can shift that. All right. So why don't you, yeah, just like relax, you know, just take a comfortable, be comfortable, sit however you need. Yeah. So just the first thing that comes up for us, it has to do with your motivation. So the motivation on your human design is the personality, sun, earth, and we talked about that being right variable. So you're open and receptive in that area, and the motivation is defined by the tone, which is not important. I'm not going to get into that right now, but well, color and tone. So you're motivated by what's called guilt, but it's really about change, right? About having an impact and change, or being impacted and being changed in that process. So for you, your motivation is actually to be changed rather than to change others. It's sort of like as you change, that's how you change. Like you're looking for the right sort of conditioning. So because so much of your conditioning hasn't been right for you, now you're just like, I'm not going to let anything change me, you know. Which is, you know, again, kind of like it's fine, but there is, you know, because you are motivated by that, because you seek it out, like you're looking for that. You're literally looking for that. Like that's why you wake up every morning, is to see how different you can be before the day's through. You know, how many things can I get rid of? How many things can I take on? And that's cool. You can do that every day because you have that channel, that jack of all trades. Try whatever. You have an open G center, you have an open head. You can try on anything, you know, it really doesn't matter. But just because, you know, the thing about having an open G center is that because location is so important, like the place that you were born and the family that you were born into, and there's no blame here, it's just tends to also kind of not, you know, it's like 50-50 at best that you're going to be born in the right place. You know, that the hospital that you were born in was the right place for you to be born in, right? It probably wasn't. It's probably way less than 50-50. So you know, so the doctor was wrong, your mom was wrong, like, because you came in the wrong place. So right from the get-go, you're being conditioned. You're being like conditioned by people that are wrong for you, and that's all that's kind of come in. So now, like, you don't know how to find the right person or the right experience to be conditioned by, to get what you need. And you're a 3, you have a 3 in your personality, so you like to try things. Mm-hmm. You love trying things. You like to try things with lots of people. And you like to make money. That's a part of the third line experience too, like being, you know, materialistic.
I like to say resourceful.
Sure, resourceful. Yeah. But you know, we live in a material world, to quote Madonna. right? So
We all got our needs.
yeah. Yeah, and that's actually where the first sticking point is around this like question of materialism and where do you land there. And I mean, you're no dummy. You see what's going on. You see the corruption and the people making money off of human suffering or the destruction of the ecosystem or whatever it is, and you don't want any part in that. But that's the only examples that you're really given. I mean, it's hard to make that much money while also being being true to your principles and all that. But that's kind of the thing that you need to let go of. It's not to say that you can't be true to your principles. It's just to say that your principles shouldn't be so precious. Just like you can have them as long as you have them, but then when it's time to let them go, like you let them go because you're always going to change. And so it's more about, it's not even about following people. It's just about allowing yourself to be changed by the situation and scenarios and all that. And then it's mental, right? It's mind stuff. None of this stuff exists when we're talking about our body. Money is a construct, right? It's just, something like something I've really been focused on recently is just like the amount of dimensions that our body exists in, right? That our form is in at least nine dimensions, eight or nine is the kind of current consensus. But our mind's only in three. Our mind can only register three. So we're missing so much of what's going on anyway, right? So none of this is what it actually is. So none of it needs to be precious. It can just be what you're in the mood for, So that's something that you would have maybe gotten like pretty early, that like you need to be principled and you need to be conscious and and these things need to be consistent. That you shouldn't change your principled stance on things, or people who do are weak or uninformed, or it's not something that you want to be like. From your dad?
Probably more so my mom.
More so your mom? Would you say she kind of held the more like masculine pole in your household? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was coming up as like a masculine energy, so I thought it was your dad. But yeah, that can happen too. And again, that's fine. Like there's women who hold that sort of masculine pole in a relationship. Yeah, I mean, she's had a big impact on you. And she's not, I don't know. Something we can do for her, actually. So sometimes when I'm working on people, I have to go to the people who have impacted them and make a shift there. And then like the relationship can kind of change, and the way energy moves between you and her can also change. And here you are, also kind of being like impacted or sort of conditioned away from a certain way of being towards something else. Yeah, so, in all the ways you're open, she's defined. Like, she talking about people who know who they are and kind of live their life that way, it's that worked for her. I mean, not to say that everything is perfect, but much more okay with that than you are. So there's like a way, some kind of visual thing, like being able to, we all see the world very differently, but we're also very much designed to come in and view the world the same way our parents do, because if you come in and you can see an ultraviolet or X-ray, that's not going to really help you like as a survival strategy. So we've all been born to be hardwired to see the light spectrum in the same way as our parents do, and their parents did, and their parents did, and their parents did. Because that's the only way for them to kind of keep us safe, right? If we're seeing things that they don't see, then they can't kind of protect us, right? Or we'll, walk off a cliff or something. So we're really getting to, we're going very far back in your family line, on your mother's side, to when this sort of definition got placed. Like, our nervous systems are incredibly old. Even though our energetic form is very new, our body is still made up of everything that came before, right? So there would have been a point where it was sort of, agreed upon, like, this is the bandwidth that we're going to be focusing on. And then every child born from that point would have been hardwired for that particular bandwidth. Sight and sound. You're here to see things very differently. Again, very differently than like anyone potentially. Mm-hmm. And you're safe. You're safe in that. But that's not the messaging that any of the women in your line would have gotten, right? It would have been like, you conform or you're dead, basically.
Yeah, I know for a fact that I terrified my mom
Mm-hmm.
with my will to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I think growing up, it was more about how we are perceived by other people versus being in my authentic energy. So in my childhood, I did conform for sake of survival, being taken care of. But as I became an adolescent and young adult, it was, this is who I am. And
Yeah.
that was the struggle of, but I need you to be this,
Right.
because this is safe. And I had no interest in being part of that.
She wants you to see the world the same way she sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're, like I said, that's not possible.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So because you can't, there's nothing in you that says, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And because she can't, there's nothing in her that says, I want that. Right? She doesn't want what you have, you don't want what she has, because neither of you are capable of doing it anyway. So how do you see each other when your worldview is like so different? And a lot of things are coming to a close in this cycle. A lot of these family dynamics are coming to a close, and I think that's a part of why people aren't having children, because they don't want to pass it on. They don't want to perpetuate this way of being, consciously, unconsciously, and and so like this particular behavior in your family line, like it's ending with you. Like we're ending it here. Like there's no potential for it to be passed on, closing it off. Is your mom still around?
Yeah.
She alive? Yeah. So she'll get some benefit from this too, but you'll get the benefit of not having that pressure to be conditioned away from what you are. And obviously that's a lot of pressure that you've received through your whole life, because we're not only talking about the pressure that your mom would have put on you to keep you safe, but the pressure that was working through her of like every mother trying to keep every daughter as safe as they possibly could. Mm-hmm. And that being tough. It's a tough job. So it's so much easier when you're similar. When you can see each other and recognize each other and be like, I know what you're going to do before you do it. Mm-hmm. Your mom doesn't know what you're going to. She just knows she's not going to know, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing. So. So it's stressful, right? It's like and it's love and caring and I don't get she feels like a lovely woman, quite honestly,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand the dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
and I have nothing but love for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely challenging to be in my authentic energy. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if anything though, now I feel that like you talked about being motivated by guilt,
yeah.
but in a sense I kind of look at it by being motivated through inspiration.
Sure.
And the impact that I witness that I'm having even on my family is whether it be my mom or extended family or whatnot, they watch my journey, and it helps motivate them in a sense to be more open,
Right.
for different things. So it does have an impact, but that's also walking a very lonely road of.
Well, she would have also, because you have a 5 in your profile, she would have projected a lot of her hopes and desires onto you.
Yeah.
And with your 3, threes learn by making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's the only way. Like you kind of have to know what doesn't work before you can know what does.
Yep.
And so that, and again, that's hard for a parent, because they're going to be like, this child is like, you're a 3-5
Always
manifestor.
making mistakes.
Well, yeah, but it's also like you're her dream in a certain way, or you know what I mean. It's just like, oh, this child's like she is just like me, like she has all my best qualities, and she's going to grow up and she's going to be all the things that I couldn't be. I'm going to give her all but she's not seeing you, right? She's projecting all her inspirations, right, onto you, which everyone's going to do once they get to know you. Like if they're in your field long enough, they'll start doing that with you, and then they'll see you fail, and they'll see you stumble, and they'll see you like make a mistake, and they'll judge you. Be like, I thought she was perfect. I thought she was such a capable, talented woman. And then I see her fall apart, because you're going through your like emotional wave and you're just going to lose your shit on someone, take their head clean off. And like, what, this doesn't make sense. And it doesn't, but it's just, you don't have to make sense. Mm-mm. This isn't a realm of logic. So, okay, yeah. So we've just identified the stream that's moving through your family line on your mother's side, and we're just like ending it. You're just cutting it off, so it doesn't get to come into this reality. It can exist. We can recognize it. We can acknowledge it. We know why it's there, but it's not flowing through your mom anymore, and by extension, not flowing through you. And that's just going to let her like relax, and maybe she will be actually interested in like what you can do, and you'd be interested in showing her, and it just lets the totality of yourself really come forward, because every woman's going to be your mom in a certain way. She's the first woman that you imprinted on, you grew inside her. So every person in a certain way, is her. So especially when you get close to them, when there's like intimacy, feelings, all that. So just having a more relaxed experience with the people who you're closest to, being the sort of end result here. There's just some individuation, so we need to get into your heart, and it's your heart that's going to distribute the new frequency of this is who I am when I'm around people now, and that will change because you're open G, and you're you're very social, and you like to be around different groups of people and all that. So. It's not going to be a consistent frequency, but it's going to be one that's, again, just sort of more like, relaxed, but also focused. Just not so much jittery and sort of anxiety, and just more like whole in your expression when you're around folks who are like projecting stuff onto you. And also just knowing when it's the right time to, pull your ripcord and parachute out of there. Because the cool thing about being a manifester is that you don't need to wait, right? So as a generator, if I make like the wrong decision, and I get into a situation that I don't want to be in, it's kind of like I'm not really like removing myself is sort of initiating in a certain way. As a manifester, you can leave, you can go, you can come and go whenever you want, whenever you feel like it. You just have to tell people, don't ghost. Right? Don't just you have to tell people like, hey, I'm leaving now, and they'll be fine with it, or I'm going to go here now. You're not invited, but I'm going over here, and then that's fine. It's all about informing. Yes,
the art of informing. I'm learning that.
Yeah, very important for you manifestor types, and again, we've all been conditioned to like ask, is that okay? It's like, I mean, and you can, and they can answer, and they might say no, and then you can say, well, I'm going anyway. It's like, that's fine too. Yeah. Or I'm staying longer, whichever way you want to go.
My default has usually been to just do whatever, and I wouldn't inform anybody, and which is why, for example, my mom would always have heart attacks, but, but, it's, sure. I'm learning to inform people of what my intentions are and what I want to do.
And that's really what we're setting you up for. It's like their response doesn't really matter, right? It's how you use your energy and just being correct with your energy, because they might respond to you correctly, but for them, their correct response is, well, I don't like that. and then your correct response is, I don't care, like that's
Pretty
fine,
much.
right? That's very correct, very
Yeah.
correct, potentially. Yeah. So, okay. So just in the, your heart has the awareness of what you are. And I have it that, your heart, your heart's one of, if not the first organ that forms, which makes a lot of sense. Like your other cells can't differentiate until there's blood and oxygen, right? So your heart forms first, and then it starts to pump like information, right, through sound, right? That heartbeat, that, that rhythm, it informs the cells of what they're supposed to be. And then feeds them, right? Feeds them the nutrients and the hormones and all the things that makes them respond in the way that they're designed to actually respond. So when we're clearing something like this, it's always good to get into the heart and do like an individuation process. Just make sure that, just removing like all this influence and not having it be distributed through your body any longer, and that it be replaced with something more authentic, more like just what you are. Rather than what you've been told you should be, or the pressures that you felt as a sensitive child wanting to please, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's, there's, once we start doing that, it's like there's a real strength in your heart. Like your heart's very strong. So you have a lot of will, potentially. You have an open heart center in your design, so that access to the will isn't going to be consistent, but when you have it, you have a lot of it, basically. And then again, just very important to recognize like who's around you that can kind of do that for you, that can work in unison with you design-wise, that will give you access to that willpower in the heart center. And that is actually the best way to be conditioned, right? To find someone who has what you need, and then let them in. And then, yeah, you'll be changed by that, but you'll also get something that you really like having more consistently. Okay. Yeah, so that's going to roll out for a few days. So your body will be figuring itself out for a few days. So, hydration.
You got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For sure. Any questions from that?
No,
Okay, cool.
thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, you're very welcome. All right, so we've done an hour. Min, do you want to go over your design at all, or how are you feeling? You're just holding space over there for us?
Just receiving.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are we doing for time, John?
Fine.
Okay. All right, well, let's just very quickly touch on Min, since she's been kind enough to grace us with her presence today. The interesting thing is that both of you have the same variables. You're both PRRDLL, so you're right, left. So you're both kind of set up in the same kind of way. Min, your digestion is about touch. So you have what's called calm touch. So for you really want to eat like alone. You don't really want to be stimulated when you're eating. It's about like not just having your own space, or trying that out anyway. You're a valleys environment, so you like nature. Ideally, like your body's going to feel better in a landscape versus a hardscape. So cities aren't really your jam necessarily. Would you say that's correct?
It feels like there's, I guess, like, yes, that's true to some level, although I would say for the majority of my life I've been in like inner city type of environments.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're in Sedona right now, which is a good wide valley for you. Do you like being here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, environment's just like, it's not a place you need to stay necessarily, but it's like when you're trying to, when you're working through something, when you're trying to, when you're in a process of some kind, that process is going to be much easier for you to go through in a wide valley kind of, environment versus like an inner city, which is a valley in a certain way, like it's a narrow valley. So the thing about the wide versus the narrow is it's about acoustics. It's like how sound moves. So when you're, going through your process, when you're filtering energy in the way that you filter it, it's going to work better for you to be in an open space where sound travels differently than like in a tight box where there's like lots of tall buildings, like those like downtowns in the big cities. Those are like narrow valleys. Sound travels in a very different kind of way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and okay. So, do you know much about being a projector? Have you?
Yeah, getting more familiar as it kind of just comes into my realm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So about like how you're supposed to wait until you're invited, until you're recognized, really, right? So projectors are here to guide. Like you're doing an excellent job. You've been holding space like wonderfully while I was working here. Being a projector does come along with like a certain amount of silence and a certain amount of stillness. Not inserting yourself into things, but sort of waiting until someone invites you. And then once they invite you, you can kind of, you can come in and you can wow them with your knowledge and your capabilities. You're a 3-5 also. You both have the same profile. So, it's that same kind of deal. Like people are going to kind of expect things from you, sort of like project their own ideas about what you might be and what you might be able to offer and all this. And then, maybe you'll succeed in some of them and maybe you won't, but that will just kind of be part of your life process. Projectors tend to be a bit more on the people pleaser side of the spectrum. So you'll work, you'll work to be like what others kind of want you to be, or that would have been a theme maybe growing up. Would you say that's true or no? Did you avoid that pitfall?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a part of my transition.
Yeah. Not like anticipating people's needs and getting there first.
Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of work do you do?
Well, I'm transitioning, starting to explore like more of content creation.
Okay. What were you doing before?
Well, the latest I was research operations at Airbnb.
Oh, okay.
Like more of, I guess, like corporate, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that's not, you're, you have like a personnel manager, that gate, there's a gate that relates specifically to like seeing people and knowing where they fit and how they should operate, like what positions they would be best in and all that. So being in a corporate structure for you, might be fine. Or having your own corporate structure, like having something, are you looking to become independent, or are you more comfortable being like a part of something larger?
I think personally independent, but the view is kind of understanding on a broader aspect. So in that sense, it's a little bit of both.
Right. Well, you have your incarnation cross. It's called the cross of the unexpected, and so you should just know that things are going to happen. Whether you and they're not going to be like anticipated. The founder of human design, he died on the day he died. It was a cross of the unexpected, and his passage sort of in a certain way opened the world to design in a different way. It really sort of exploded after his death. No one could have assumed that with his death that the system would have actually grown right? So no, I'm not talking about you dying and the consequences of that, but I am saying that when things happen to you or around you that are sort of unanticipated or unexpected, you can count on that being very necessary. So you might have had experiences in your life. Yeah, I mean, people dying, unexpectedly, financial ups and downs. Like it could take many different forms. But you can relax into that. You don't need to control or anticipate and kind of get ahead of it. It's much more important for you to just kind of be in the flow of it. Because it's a mutative process. It changes things for you and everyone else. But it's also an experiment, and you should just do what feels right for you also. So, that whole thing. Is there anything about your design that you are specifically interested in?
I mean, I guess I haven't really looked into like the numbers and understanding like the intricacies of that.
Sure. So, we were talking about Talene and myself being emotional authority and having to wait until we have sort of emotional clarity because we're going to have highs and lows and they have kind of nothing to do with what's happening potentially. Your authority is called splenic. So you're very intuitive. Talking about our body and that it exists in many dimensions, many more than what our mind is capable of perceiving, right? So that's the issue with using our mind to make decisions because we're limited by its nature. With the spleen being your sort of decision maker, it's a body thing, So like we're creating this with our consciousness, right? Like I'm looking at you and you're looking at me, but our conscious awareness is about a half second behind so we're looking at something that's sort of already happened. It takes time for light to travel, and then it takes time for our brain to do something with the light that's coming in through our eyes. And so, but our body is experiencing it in real time. And that's why we have like reflexes, like our body can move much faster. And in fact, our body does move much faster. So by the time you've registered that a part of your body is moving, it's like your mind isn't initiating that movement, right? Your body's initiating that movement. And then your mind's kind of coming in and being like, should we keep going in this direction or should we stop? It sort of brings that sort of like awareness to it. But in terms of the neural firing that gets you to move your legs, your mind's not controlling that. You're not even aware that you're moving until after you've started moving. But the spleen relates to that body awareness. Our body is, like moving through this world. We're not bumping into things because our body is getting a sense of what's there before we're kind of right up against it. And so the spleen is like, it's kind of about the future. It is kind of ahead, like you are capable of getting ahead of things, of kind of getting a heads up of something before it happens. And with the cross of the unexpected, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to kind of shuck and jive. It'll be like, you're going to know about something before it comes. And you're going to, you can like adjust or not. You can decide, based on what your body is telling you, like you might know that something's coming and it's not going to be great, but your body's telling you to stay here anyway. The feeling of, I need to be here. This is where I have to be, right? Or I need to get away from here. Or I need to get away from this person. Or I need to stop eating this food. I need to take this supplement. It's like, it's very, very much about security and very much about health, keeping you, our spleen's the immune system. It's about keeping us safe and, keeping what's out there and keeping what's in here, keeping everything kind of going in that sense. So when you have splenic authority, it's very unconscious. You're going to get signals about what you should be doing well before, sometimes before the thing actually comes. So are you like connected to that intuitive process?
I've recognized that I do things without really fully understanding, and then it makes sense afterwards.
Right. Yes. Perfectly said. Yeah, that's exactly what splenic authority is. You have the channel of struggle. That's between the spleen and the root, and that is your, definition, the 2838. And when you have talking about manifestors in history, like who have achieved great things, the projector is like it's about you guys moving forward. The manifestors have had their time, and the projectors are sort of the new driving force in a certain way. It's very different. But Mark Zuckerberg is a projector with the channel of struggle, and Jeff Bezos is a projector with the channel of struggle. Walt Disney, he wasn't a projector, he was a generator, but he had the channel of struggle also. So when you have the channel of struggle, it's a struggle, but it's a struggle for purpose. Once you realize what your purpose is on this planet, you can build a massive empire if you so choose, if it feels right for you. You can create, in a different world, Facebook would have been something really great. I mean, it was really great. Amazon, it's like these things are like amazing. But the insecurities of the creators and everything kind of came forward and corrupted the whole thing. But yeah, that's very much in there. But it's a struggle, right? It's a struggle to find purpose and to kind of make that purpose, make the expression of that purpose real. So there you have it. But it's cool. It's cool. Once you get going on something, it should, it could potentially be something very big, very impactful. All right. So I think, unless there's any questions, I think I'll end it here. Is there anything else? Is there anything you wanted to know specifically?
I was curious about what you were saying. I can't remember the words you specifically used.
Mm-hmm.
About, I guess, Facebook being filtered through their...
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, talking about conditioning.
Conditioning.
Yeah,
Yes.
and just how, everyone's flawed, right? And everyone's got things working through them potentially that aren't the best. And if Facebook as a medium of exchange, an exchange of ideas and images and people being able to catch up with each other much easily over long distances, that's a really valuable thing. But social media in general is kind of problematic for a lot of people. They have a hard time with it, and the algorithm that runs these platforms is basically designed to isolate and exploit that difficulty in its user base, and it could have been designed differently. It really could have been just, I don't know, not better or worse necessarily, but just if he had just been allowed to be what he is, or had been able to be what he is without all the things that happen to all of us as we grow up. I don't know him, so I can't say exactly what he's working through and what he's working with and what his life was like.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm getting at is it's just the scope that he was able to achieve in, and the impact he was able to have, and that it was mixed.
Yeah, I think my curiosity comes from knowing that information, if you will, collectively, say if there's other projectors or any other aura, how do we receive that information and move forward in what we're creating in the future?
Well, so for you, it should be about being invited, right? So projectors are here to guide, And so it's very good for a projector to become well-versed in things so that you could be easily recognized, you know. So I don't know like what the best example would be, but it, you know, it's just people, you know, people seeing you and recognizing you and inviting you to do things with them based on what they know about you. I know you like this. Do you want to come do this with me? You know, I know that you've had experience in, you know, this area. I need help with that. Can you help me? You know, that's really, ideally, that's the only time that you move forward on like anything. The rest of the time, you're just doing whatever you want, right? Whatever feels good for you. And just because someone approaches you correctly and they invite you to do something with them, doesn't mean that you need to say yes. There's, you know, projectors love being recognized because it's correct for them. So for someone to see you and to recognize you and to be like interested in what you have to say and what you have to tell them, what you have to show them, and like all this stuff, that will feel very good for you. You know, it will feel right, but you have to wait on that splenic authority to tell you whether or not you want to move forward. It might feel right in terms of the interaction, but there might also be this sense of like, this isn't the right opportunity. You know, this isn't the right person, this isn't the right organization. And then the more you wait until you do get that go-ahead. So for you, it might be auditory. There might be a sound that you can associate, or a tone, or an actual voice. You know, telling, like, you can hear it, yes, you know, or you can hear it, no. And just being able to trust that first of all, being able to identify when it is your spleen talking to you. And so, like I was saying, you know, it could be a physical sensation, could be like goosebumps, or, you know, a sort of a surge moving through your nervous system, or it could be auditory, whatever it is. Being able to identify that and trusting that, and that when it says no, you follow that, because that's going to kind of keep you safe. And the more that you say no, the more opportunity you have for the right thing to come in, the thing that you can actually say yes to. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Patience.
Patience, yes. Patience is a virtue for you projectors. But again, you know, you've been conditioned. We've all been conditioned to initiate. You know, manifestors are conditioned to be generators. They're conditioned to like go along with things and like, you know, don't be so confrontational, and just, why do you need to be so difficult? Just be easy, like your brother or your sister or whatever. Projectors are projectors and generators to a certain degree. It's different, but we're all kind of conditioned to be manifestors. Like, you got to go out, you got to do it, you got to get it done. It's up to you. You know, you got to go get the good grades. You got to work really hard. Projectors aren't here to work. Generators are, you know. But as a projector, you're gonna run out of steam faster than a generator might. And so, being able to recognize when you've hit your limit, and not judging yourself for it, you know, not feeling like it's a weakness, it's actually a strength. But that's the thing, we've all been conditioned that we need to work. We need to work hard, and we need to work harder than others, and we need to prove our worth, you know, by working hard and all that stuff. So for you, that's not going to work for you. Like, you're not here to work super long hours and, you know.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, I would love to see everyone shifting away from that.
Oh yeah, well that's coming. I mean, you know, 2027 will be, because, you know, that everyone working the same amount of hours and getting the same pay. I mean, we're already far from that. That went away with our parents, basically, right? We didn't grow up in a world where that was really, it was expected, but it wasn't really available. You know, it's been gigs for us, pretty much our whole working career. But yeah, you know, you're here for the future, so your life will make a lot more sense in a few years. More than it does now. You know, just how you feel and the way you filter energy. You know, it's also important to recognize the thing about the projector focus. So the way your aura works is it's penetrative. So the manifestor aura repels, the generator aura sort of like folds in, or sort of envelops. as a generator, I walk into a room and I'm feeling everybody or everything, everything in my field, and then I rely on my authority to say yes or no to all that's there. Yes, I want this. No, I don't want that. As a projector, when you come into a space, you're focused. So it's like whoever you're talking to is getting all of your focus. And if you're in a room with more than one person, then you're going to be splitting your focus in a certain way. Like you're going to be focused on this person, and then this other person walks up and they start getting your focus. And the other person who you were focused on now feels like they're not getting focused anymore. And a lot of people, a lot of generators like getting that projector focus. So you could have situations where people kind of get like upset with you or feel like you're not paying attention to them, or that kind of thing. And that's just part of your aura. You're going to focus on what you're focused on. And when you're not focused on someone, they're going to feel it. So it's a very different way of being. Projectors, like you guys have a very trippy experience. I don't, as a generator, I don't get it. I see it, but I don't get it. It's very different. And you need to recognize that about yourself, just that you're different. You operate very differently than most people are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your perspective.
For sure. All right, cool. A nice long one today. Okay, well, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.